G'day humans, Stead from Finder here, and I've just come out of the Canon R3 press briefing. They've just announced this camera and it's going to be coming out in late November 2021. So I just wanted to give you this quick reaction to everything that I've just learned about this upcoming camera. This isn't it here, this is the R5. So this is the one that's going to be slightly below the R3. The R3 is going to come in as a professional grade camera. It's going to be priced somewhere between what we've seen with the 1DX and the R5. So in Australia, I'm suspecting we're going to have to pay around the $9,000 mark. So it's a serious piece of kit, but it's also looking pretty damn impressive. Now I've jotted down here kind of the 5 features that really struck me while I was doing this press briefing as being big standouts of this camera. Now the number one thing is the eye tracking autofocus. So what this is going to do is when you're looking through the viewfinder on the R3, it's going to track your eyes, it's going to track what you're looking at, and that's where it's going to put the focus of the image that you're taking. And this works in the video as well, but just focusing on the stills for the moment. So this is obviously going to be really, really handy. Now it's about focusing more between things that are in the foreground and the background, also picking up particular subjects in a scene. It's not so much about the tracking of things that are moving, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a sec. But what's allowing this to happen is this electronic viewfinder, and I'll get the exact stats for you here. It's 5.76 million dot OLED, 120 frames per second electric viewfinder in this thing. So it's doing a lot of the eye tracking. You've got none of that blackout as well between continuous shots. So you can actually shoot 30 frames per second on the electric shutter with the R3. So that's like lightning quick, and you'll just be able to shoot away and get that eye tracking while you're doing it as well. Now it's not just the eye tracking that stood out to me, they've also got the autofocus subject tracking. So this is about when the things are really moving. And I should have pointed this out probably at the top, but what they're really focusing this camera on, like I said, it's a professional grade camera, although I'm sure plenty of enthusiasts are going to raise an eyebrow at this one, but it's very much focused on fast shooting. So it's all about the speed and also about sensitivity. So it's about speed in not just normal light, but low light situations as well, and about durability. So it's built out of that same kind of magnesium alloy body with the same sealing that we saw on the 1DX. So it's going to be, you know, stand up to the conditions when you take it outside, but it's got this speed, which is really incredible. And then it's got this autofocus subject tracker. So what it does is, and it's a lot better at detecting things like head tracking, eye tracking, body tracking. And it's got new modes which focus on racing cars, motorbikes, people, animals, birds, these types of things that are moving quite quick. It's a lot better at acknowledging the fact that someone might be wearing a helmet. It's a lot better at dealing with things like makeup or people doing poses in front of their faces, or even face masks, which obviously is a pretty big concern in 2021. So this is what the subject tracking is going to do, and it's going to combine with the eye tracking. So you're going to lock on with your focus with the eye tracking, and then the subject tracking is going to take over and take control if that subject is then moving that you've focused your eyes onto. So the idea is here that, like, if you're a sports photographer or if you're doing news photography or wildlife photography, whether that's professional or enthusiast, this is where this camera is really going to shine. Now I did speak about the speed a bit then before, however speed was the third big thing that I noticed with this camera as being a real standout. Obviously the 30 frames per second is really impressive. That's with the electronic shutter. If you switch to the mechanical shutter, that drops to 12 frames per second, but just focusing on the electric shutter for the moment, that will sync with the flash as well, up to 15 frames per second. So if you're taking 15 frames per second, the flash is going to sync with that. So that's obviously quite impressive. Now those 30 frames you're taking per second are going to save at 14-bit RAW files. So you've got the CF Express card option in here as well. So that's going to be a big part of it's going to be pairing it with that card, so you can get those really high transitions. There's also, this is using a back illuminated stacked CMOS sensor, and that allows a faster process when it's taking the picture to getting it to the memory card. So the way that it kind of comes from the sensor through the GGX processing and then onto the card itself to keep things really quite fast. There's no blackouts during the continuous shooting, as I mentioned, so the eye tracking can stay on target. And we're looking at the rolling shutter being far reduced as well, so it's going to be a lot cleaner image when you're going full pelt. So really impressive, the speed of this camera. And I can't really wait to play around with it, especially with a really good lens, maybe get some shots of the guys surfing at the local beach or some wildlife shots. Really looking forward to that, the kids on their bikes, that type of thing. The fourth big feature that stood out to me was the low light shooting. Now, sensitivity was one of the big things that they spoke about in this. They wanted it to be really quite good at low levels. The ISO limit on this is a really impressive 102,400. That is expandable up to 204,800, but that's pretty good ISO range for sure. The low light capabilities of this in handheld mode is what impressed me most. They showed me some examples in the press briefing of handheld shots that have been taken with the shutters open for 4 seconds, and they come out pretty good. They weren't that blurred at all, other than things that were moving in the image. So I was really impressed by that. I hope that's the case when I get hands-on with it. You can do HDR 3-shot composites as well, which is a big help for the low light shooting. And the fifth thing that I noticed was probably the most significant change to the actual design. If you've held any of the R5 or the R6 or the other EOS mirrorless cameras, in fact, any of the DSLRs, you'll be familiar with the Canon form factor. It's a great camera to hold, really well balanced, great grip. The most notable change to the design is this new horseshoe. They're calling it a multifunctional horseshoe. So basically, this is the mount on top here, and it's now got a connector, a data connector and a power connector. So when you slot it in there, it's actually going to be able to feed data to and from the camera a lot quicker, like we see with the RF lenses, it's a bit more about them working together than being two separate entities, and also can be powered from the camera itself. So in that way, the accessories don't have to have their own power packs built in, so it'll be a lot more user-friendly to carry around. They did actually announce 4 new accessories coming that are compatible with the new horseshoe for the launch of the R3. Most notable of which was the DM-E19 digital microphone. There's also a new speedlight transmitter and also a smartphone link adapter as well. So you can connect that and to get photos off and moving when you're on the go. Now, on top of that, there's a lot of other features, and I encourage you to go to the finder.com.au website and check out my full article where I go into everything in depth. The weight of the device is worth noting. It's just over a kilo, so it's about 400 grams lighter than the 1DX, and definitely when you see the two cameras side by side, it's definitely a smaller chassis as well. So a lot more movable in that regard. And Canon is doing a lot to kind of entice 1DX users to, I don't know if upgrade's the correct word, because the 1DX is still considered the primo top of the range Canon, but those wanting to move to the mirrorless range may be looking at the R3. They've allowed like a pretty good transfer there. For example, it's the same batteries. There's also an optical viewfinder simulation. So if you don't like the electronic finder, you can use the optical finder and get that kind of more natural, wider dynamic range option there. So you can better experience, there's more similar shooting experience to the 1DX, but on the R3, should you want that. The video is worth mentioning as well. They were pretty low key in actually talking about the video in this press briefing, and I think that's not because the R3 will undershoot video. I think it's more because the R5's video is one of its standout features, and it's probably going to cannibalize it a little bit, even though there's a significant price difference there. But the video still shoots in 4K up to 120p, so that's going to let you do the slow motion stuff. You can actually do up to 6K 60p, that's raw files, oversampled, and you've now got no limit to how long you can shoot. So before you could only shoot for 29 minutes and 59 seconds, and then it was just capped out. Now you can just continuously shoot as long as your camera is below 23 degrees when you start to film. And the rep at Canon told us that if you've got the right combo of cards and battery at the time that you try to shoot, you can get up to 6 hours of continuous shooting on the video. So I think it's actually going to hold up quite well as a video camera as well, even though they're kind of focusing on the still side of it and most of their marketing. Like I said, I think that's because they don't want to cannibalize the R5 too much, but that's just my opinion. But like I said, plenty more to read up about the R3. Head over to the finder.com.au website to learn more, and I can't wait to get this camera in my hands. As soon as I do, I'll see you then.